having me today on distance. The reason is professional. I was attending a meeting yesterday on EU level, and I've been selected to a group fighting radicalization in Europe. And the panel I'm working in is called Conspiracy Narratives and Ideology. So it is a very timely topic that I'm talking about, since we are living in a so-called post-truth world where facts maybe not matter as much as we would like it. And I would like to take the opportunity to introduce you to this topic. It is, and we have to be aware of it when we talk about challenges of the 21st century, because we have to be aware that there are not only these contradicting figures of membership development or people searching for meaning in their life and so on, but there's also the other context going on around ourselves. I worked mainly on 18th century cultural history for a long time of my academic career. My dissertation was devoted, and I worked on Freemasonry in the 18th century, and that was the case until 2011. And in 2011, on the 22nd of July, is a day to remember for all the wrong reasons. Because it was then a bomb detonated outside one of Oslo's government buildings, killing 8 people. And afterwards, there was a shooting massacre on the island of Utøya, where 69 participants of a political youth camp were indiscriminately murdered, and 33 of them were minors. Many more were left wounded and traumatized for the rest of their lives. And hours later, after this attack, the identity of the perpetrator, Anders Behring Breivik, was revealed. And the tabloids would present him as a Freemason, dressed in regalia, and his fantasy Knights Templars uniform. And during the evening of the 22nd of July, Breivik's so-called manifesto, Europe 2083, a European Declaration of Independence, and an accompanying propaganda video started to circulate on social media. Both of them are rife with references to the ideology of the European counter-jihad movement, alleging that Europe is experiencing the unhealthy and devastating impact of Islamization, instigated by corrupt social-political elites. And whatever we can learn from the case of Breivik or his compendium of over 775,000 words, he assembled the convoluted results of a massive online quest to self-confirmation. It's a pertinent representation of the new generation of Google radicalization, or broadband terrorism, which is chock full of disproportionate inconsistencies. But in the more autobiographical part of the manifesto, Breivik presents a clear picture of how online socialization takes place. He wanted to replicate the structure of Al-Qaeda, and Breivik imagined operating on behalf of a cell belonging to a likewise imagined order of European Knights Templar. How can Breivik's Knights Templar fantasies be explained? I asked myself that question, and I was thinking about the rise of the second generation Ku Klux Klan in the interwar United States. It was then the concept of racism married forcefully with the idea of a select knighthood, one placed above the law, nurtured by aggressively racist and exaggerated nationalism, as well as religious and, in this case, anti-Catholic demonization. The Klan believed itself to represent the true American values that had been sold out by a corrupt federal government to Catholicism and Jewry. There has long been a strong anti-Semitic strain of the KKK, pulling the strings of the vast conspiracy against the American people, their freedom and constitutional rights. KKK ideology justified murders, or what we certainly today would brand as terrorist acts, widespread violations of basic human rights and severe infringements of the rule of law, and the state monopoly on violence and jurisprudence. But Breivik's fraternal fantasies are just one side of the coin. Those who attempted to make sense of his terrorist murder spree also fell into the trap of conspiracist imagination. That Behring Breivik proved to be a member of a Norwegian lodge of Freemasons, which he was, and in his manifesto styled himself a member of the imaginary order of European Knights Templar, was enough to trigger other bizarre accusations about the perpetrator. These connections provided the founding father of peace and conflict research, Johan Galtung, to provide fuel to revive old anti-Semitic tropes of the protocols of the Elders of Zion. He and his Swedish colleague Ola Thunander, also an academic, launched theories that Breivik may have been controlled by the Israeli secret service Mossad in order to torpedo the Oslo peace process between Israel and Palestine that was going on at the time. For Galtung, a serious academic, it was a plausible explanation that the state of Israel was able to pull the strings of a Freemason in order to carry out a terrorist attack, leaving 77 people dead and many more injured and traumatized, most among them being teenagers. Galtung also claimed that the Norwegian police security service was a tool for the abolishment of democracy in Norway. And this was evidenced, for instance, by the PST overlooking Breivik's Templar Masonic connection and potentially consciously delaying counterterrorism operations on the day of the attacks. And in one of his propositions, Galtung recommended that his audience read books written by the prolific Norwegian conspiracist Per Astak Etresvåg and Erik Rudström. Galtung repeatedly cited ideas from Rudström's two-volume works on Freemasonry and secret power elites that you can see here on the screen, as well as Etresvåg's books on similar issues, claiming to identify the existence of a deep state that manipulates domestic and international politics beyond recognition and democratic control. It was further claimed that the Norwegian social democratic movement received instructions from Jewish Zionism as outlined in the protocols, which, as is frequently claimed in conspiratorial literature, uses Freemasonry as its tool. To me, this example from the early 21st century, both the terrorist attack and the reaction upon that demonstrates that Freemasonry and fraternal knighthood in the conspiratorial imagination of our times can be used in very ambivalent ways. So number one, it can be used to project violently exclusionary ideologies, which we can see in the case of Breivik. So he uses Freemasonry and this imaginary order to create a fiction of an ideology that gives him the right to kill people. And it can be used as a universal scapegoat of dramatic world events. For instance, in the worldview of conspiracy theories like Galtung and many, many others. And in our age of post-truths, I believe it's important to object to both usages and push for enlightenment. And I will probably, somewhat controversial, also claim that Freemasonry partly is to blame itself for being abused in the first instance, which also the previous lecture already addressed a little bit, I would say. And I will claim that we need sharper tools of analysis and insights to understand and counter the dangers of scapegoating and demonization we are exposed to. Since its beginnings, the ideas of Freemasonry have developed in a tension between introverted exploration and a commitment to Enlightenment values. We may also call it esoteric and exoteric meaning-making. The search for the origins of Freemasonry have frequently led to accept a mythological interpretation of historical development or to assume a resemblance to initiatory societies of the past. These endeavors have, however, confused our internal needs, for instance, to motivate ritual drama and to construct a mythological history of development and factual historiography. For outsiders, this ambivalence has been difficult to decode, and it has fueled fantastical imagination of the true power of Freemasonry and its involvement in and influence upon true historical events or people in power. What might be branded as a positive conspiracy in world history, as laid out by Anderson in the Constitutions, has been understood as an evil machinations of the sons of Cain since biblical times. The risk is that Freemasonry in our own times once more might be identified as an evil force conspiring against humanity. Since my research on Breivik and right-wing populist movements in Germany, I joined a vibrant community working on conspiracy theories in Europe. In 2020, just weeks before the pandemic, we released the first handbook of conspiracy theories. And during the COVID-19 emergency, I authored a report for the Swedish Civil Contingency Agency on COVID-19 and conspiracy theories. I will not go deeper into that, but in connection with my research, so if you have a manuscript in front of you, you can jump a couple of lines and go to the sentence starts. In connection with my research, I had to descend into several rabbit holes, and one of those rabbit holes is called the swamp. It is all connected. This is a typical meme about conspiracy theories that is circulating on the internet. And on the surface level of that meme, we can see that we are enslaved in a fake world with fake needs, problems, and solutions. The matrix. It is operated from below, so the next level. By coalitions of security services and big corporate conglomerates in all areas of economy, such as tech, pharma, and agro. Yet, descending yet another level deeper, we find the usual suspects. Again, we find secrets. We find security services, but also Jewish financial elites, Soros and Rothschild, lobby organizations like the Bilderberg Group, for some reason, the CERN particle accelerator, and of course, secret societies. You can see them in the middle of the image on the third level. Freemasons, Illuminati, Knights Templar, and Jesuits. All of these groups are united by Luciferian rituals, with blood sacrifices, and extending their power even beyond this planet. Chip Berlaine's study on US conspiracy culture has identified an area of typical and exchangeable villains in conspiracy narratives, the so-called protocols of overlap and conspiracism, with Freemasons and Illuminati as the typical scapegoats. What makes conspiracy theories so attractive? Last year, I published a book called, in Swedish, titled Conspiracy Theories, Meaning-Making Narratives in History and Present Times. My position is that conspiracy theories never communicate truth values, but also always value judgments or existential positions. Understandings of true and false, right and wrong, and good and evil are confused in assumptions about causation. So the relationship between causes and effects, or inputs and outputs, which is why conspiracy theories are misleading. However, they are not only misleading, but unfortunately, they are very good stories. In a veritable maze of metatextual references, Umberto Eco, the famous author of The Name of the Rose, but in his book The Prague Cemetery, makes his master plotter Simonini discover the so-called universal form of any conspiracy while reading Alexandre Dumas' novel Joseph Balsamo. And this is the formula that Umberto Eco presents. Let us imagine conspirators who come from every part of the world and represent the tentacles of their sect spread throughout every country. Let us assemble them in a dark forest clearing, a cave, a castle, a cemetery or crypt, provided it is reasonably dark. Let us get one of them to pronounce a discourse that clearly sets out the plan and the intention to conquer the world. I've known many people who fear the conspiracy of some hidden enemy. For my grandfather, it was the Jews. For the Jesuits, it was the Masons. For my Garibaldian father, it was the Jesuits. For the kings of half of Europe, it was the Carbonari. For my Mazzinian companions, it was the king backed by the clergy. For the police throughout half the world, it was the Bavarian Illuminati, and so forth. Who knows how many other people in this world still think they are being threatened by some conspiracy. Here is a form to fill out at will by each person with its own conspiracy. Umberto Eco's or Simonini's formula has several features potentially open for infinite duplication in different narrative settings. There's a global scope of the conspiracy, an organization, a sect, there are assemblies in covert locations, a programmatic speech or declaration with the expressed aim of dominating global affairs. And to this is adding the element of the existential fear of a conspiracy carried out by a hidden enemy. And moreover, Eco and Simonini presents interchangeable images of an enemy in different historical and social political contexts. And this formula allows for a personalized version of conspiracy narratives tailor-suited for everyone. Freemasonry will never escape being targeted by such dark tales of conspiracy, but by being conscious about how they are constructed, we might be able to see the signs and contribute to scattering false ideas about the purpose of the Brotherhood. One important thing that I constantly encounter while working on these issues is that conspiracy theories not are the brainchild of derangement and delusion, but cater to people's needs, both real and imagined. We are living in precarious times in which many people are experience and are scared of inequalities. One function of charity we might not have thought about before, and that goes beyond of doing good in society, is to close the gaps of inequality and thus contribute to minimize the need to find scapegoats, to project your frustrations on a demonized other and to restore hope. We have a duty to step in as a force providing help and hope. But also, we have to engage in introspect soul searching. Over the last decades, there has been what I would claim some risks linked to Masonic, with the Masonic soul searching. Because over the last decades, we've seen that there has been a quest for a search for the origins of Freemasonry. We all know, and we have all experienced the power of ritual, particularly when it comes from clear sources, and when the originals of the 18th century always appear deeper and more thought through than later adaptations and reductions, like a piece of classical music, directly connecting to the foundations of Western thought, the myths of antiquity, the Bible and Christianity, the principles of the Enlightenment, and the discovery of the human drama itself, a sort of psychology avant la lettre. And the more we know and learn about our rituals were developed, how they migrated across the globe and transformed to local settings, the more fascinating it gets. Yet at the same time, let us not confuse this search for originality with the search for the original contribution of Freemasonry to our times and the future. I have a fear, and it's perhaps an irrational or even contradictory fear, since I am an historian of ideas and a Masonic scholar myself, that retrospection can lead to the dead end of melancholia and nostalgia, or what sociologist Zygmunt Bauman has called retrotopia, to project the past as the future. I sincerely believe that neither the mythological history of origins and development of Freemasonry as in Anderson's constitutions, nor the Knights Templar mythology, so deeply ingrained with continental Freemasonry, not least my own, the Swedish Rite, served to construct a utopia of the past, but rather to communicate visions for the future. Yet I fear that some of our members think that Freemasonry is about to conserve or to restore a golden age of past glory. And we have to ask the question, for what end? I have two examples. I will also soon come to the end of my presentation. I'm aware of the time issues. we have to ask the question, for what ends? I deeply admire the work of the Masonic Restoration Foundation in the United States of America. They are working to create a more holistic experience of ritual and fraternal conviviality. And I belong myself to a rite that hasn't changed ritual substantially over the last 200 years. Yes, we almost must ask ourselves what the promise of the past represents and how that promise of the past can intervene productively in our present times and contribute to the future. So, restoration for what? What is the purpose of restoring something? Another example. I also like philosophy quite a lot. In the United States, we have seen a surge of interest in uncovering the Stoic origins of Masonic thought. The idea that Stoicism somehow represents the foundational principle for the Masonic drama. And while that most likely holds true to a certain degree, we might legitimately ask the question, why not, for instance, Epicureanism is yet another philosophy which strives to release humans from the fear of mortality and to seek perfection in the community of like-minded. And why not Epicureanism? Because more than being concerned with virtues and develop a Stoic mindset about the ups and downs of seemingly unchangeable fate residing completely outside us as human beings, Epicureanism is a philosophy searching for the true principles of nature. It is not fate, but chance that makes the atoms change their course, and which ultimately is the foundation of free will. Epicurus, the founder of Epicureanism, teaches. It's not fate, it is chance. And Lucretius, the Latin author, he wrote a magnificent poem called De Rerum Naturae. It's a masterpiece to explain these teachings, and I find them highly important to consider as a source for our understanding of Freemasonry, which to me, far more than accept fate, is about to create your own destiny. So it matters deeply to what kind of past we return to and what the messages of the past might hold for the future. Now, in the very last part of my lecture, I would like to develop briefly how the fiction of conspiracy works and how it could possibly be counteracted. The grand conspiracy narrative we can observe that is so prevalent in our current times of post-truth is aggravated around these 12 constituting parts, which I don't have to develop in time here, but I assume that you all will get my presentation afterwards as well. But that's a narrative that uses these parts that you're seeing here. It's pushed for by people in power. It's spread by people feeling powerless. It is abused as a tool in disinformation or to construct exclusionary group identities. It follows a basic script with these 12 ingredients, and it goes as follows. There are clear and repeated patterns that show that everything is connected according to a detailed and predetermined plan, where nothing happens by chance. Some, the they of the story, have conspired to plot the conspiracy together. They have evil intentions, they are out to hurt us. That's the we of the story. Conspiracy and the plan are prepared and carried out in secret, out of sight, and with the help of blind tools to hide the real intentions from us. There is evidence that exposes and substantiates the conspiracy. The world is divided in black and white. It is always their fault. They are generally evil and demons. We see them as octopuses, puppeteers, and traitors. But there is hope. There's somebody who can tell you the truth. We are heading towards the ultimate end, but the truth tellers are on the good side and are able to wake the sleeping sheeples. But I asked myself when doing research, and I've been asked many times, what can we do against this? And as it is possible to have a very dark narrative about conspiracy, it's also to construct a counter-narrative. And that counter-narrative likewise can entail 12 ingredients that you can see here. I won't have time to go deeper into that. And a counter-narrative could be completely different. It would be one that was talk about that you can ask relevant questions about the real state of things with curiosity, if you have the right preparation and equipment. If you are reaching out to someone, doing things together, that creates meaning and reduces loneliness, bridges divisions. Most people are not after to harm you, and the light can break through the darkness. And instead of like many people who are inside conspiracy mania just prove so-called proof, you can teach methods. Life is very complex and it's not dualistic, black and white, and you have a personal responsibility. We can understand, we can meet other people with empathy, and we have a duty to extinguish our anxieties so that we are good examples in society. Our knowledge comes from many different sources, and it's important to surround ourselves with expressions of hope. My hope is that you have heard this story somewhere else, namely in Freemasonry. I believe that what we can provide people with is in Freemasonry exactly what I'm writing here. It is your personal responsibility that is the most important thing. So when we engage in Freemasonry, in the search for the past and our meaning, let us not fear the lions of conspiracy theories and fiction. And let us continue that the Masonic quest is about raising individual autonomy in community, because that is the best recipe to resist the trap of conspiratorial meaning making. Sorry for taking so much time. I hope that was interesting to you. Thanks a lot.